Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today. Talk about high energy. Yep, you guys are going to have some fun. So I have an amazing guest for you guys today. I have the wonderful Mercedes. So do us all a favor and tell us, who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into your space.
Hello, everyone. Kat, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Mercedes Barba, and I am a journalist turned publicist. So I take media pitching off of entrepreneurs' plates, get them featured in the media in order to grow their business, generate revenue, and just get visibility. I think the big buzzword for 2024 right now is visibility, right?
Definitely.
If nobody knows that you exist, nobody knows that you're there to help them, right? Solve a problem. So that is what I do. I love it. I thrive on getting my clients featured at national news outlets, and it is everything for me. So yeah.
Oh, I love this so much. We're going to have so much fun because she has already told me so many things that I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. But what I need to know is how on earth did you even get into it? Like, it sounds like journalist was a thing for you. How did that transpire? And then how did you know that making that pivot is exactly what you wanted to do?
I know, it's crazy, right? Like the art of the pivot is like is like what we talk about all the time, right? You got to pivot in order to stay relevant. So I always knew from a young age, when I was in high school, I was like, I want to be a journalist. I don't know why. It's just for something just drew me to that. So when I was 18 and I graduated from high school, I was like in college, I'm like, I want to intern. I want to start working in media. So I grew up in LA, born and raised here. Obviously LA is like the Mecca, the Hollywood Mecca, right, of the world and entertainment center of everything. And so I started working as an intern when I was 18 at a television station here in Santa Monica in California and in Los Angeles. And I started covering red carpets and press junkets. And for some reason, they were sending me, the little intern, to go interview Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz and Jason Segel. Wow. And I was doing a lot of red carpet interviews and what we call press junkets, right? So it's where a journalist watched the film. They get a free screening of it before. And then the next morning you go to like a really nice hotel in Hollywood or LA and you interview the celebrities. And so I'm there as like an intern and I'm like, oh my God, am I really interviewing Justin Timberlake today? Like Jim Carrey, Morgan Freeman, like it was bonkers. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I love it. So once I graduated from high school, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to do entertainment? New York City was always on my mind. It was always like very similar to journalism. New York drew me there. And so I was like, I'm going to get my master's in journalism. I'm going to apply to NYU. So I applied to NYU, got in. I was like, okay, cool. Now we're in. Now we moved to New York. So I moved to New York. And when I started working in New York, I started covering business and entrepreneurship. Right. When I was at NYU as a student, I was working at CNBC, which is a NBC Universal's like business channel, right? Is like, it's a
Yeah.
huge, huge network. And I started doing video there, video editing, video shooting, interviewing on camera, all that stuff. And I fell into it once I graduated from NYU. I started working there full time and had been, and I've been covering business and entrepreneurship ever since. And so I started realizing, of course, I know that journalism is this big tent pole of like our country, right? Free speech, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know the power that the media holds, but it wasn't until I started working in business and entrepreneurship where I was covering stories of small business owners and people that launched businesses, or people that were that quit their six-figure job to own a hot dog stand, right? And now they're happy, and now they're living, in a van and traveling around the world. So, once I started realizing stories like that were really the paramount of like our, the world, like, and the importance of these stories, I started noticing like, wow, like, these people are blowing up, right? Like, they get featured in CNBC, but now they're getting featured on Yahoo, and now they're getting featured on Cheddar News, and now, and now they're getting featured on Money Magazine. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the coolest thing. And so, for the last 15 years, I was a journalist. I was covering stories, I was doing video editing, shooting on camera, doing Instagram lives, going on camera, doing a million things. And it wasn't until I started looking at myself internally and I was like, all right, what is my next career trajectory? And now, my career has pivoted over to publicity. So a publicist, I'm sure many people know, but maybe some people don't. A publicist is somebody that you have on your team that pitches you out as an expert source or for a feature to journalists, right? So as a journalist, I was on that side of media pitching where I would receive pitches, and I would get so many that, maybe missed the mark or didn't make sense. Or, when you are pitching journalists, you have to make sure that you're pitching them the right beat, right? In journalism, we call it beat, B-E-A-T, like what are they covering, right? So like for me, I was covering a lot of like investing and retirement and, investing in the stock market. So if somebody pitched me a story that wasn't related to that, then that wouldn't fit in my coverage. And so that's something you have to kind of know when you're pitching journalists, is like, you have to make sure that you're pitching the right person and that you're pitching their beat, or else they'll just kind of ignore you. So, so that I started my publicity business, and now I have a number of clients, and I've gotten my clients featured in really large media outlets like Good Morning America and Yahoo Finance and Essence and AOL and MSN and Entrepreneur, right? And so it has been the most rewarding thing for me. I think my career as a journalist sort of halted because for so long I was so excited about it and featuring people. And then now I'm like, I want to help people more. And again, and how can I do that is I'm going to be their publicist and I'm going to blow their business up, right? In a good way. Especially now in like this digital world that we live in, and with Google, right? You have to have a digital footprint. You have to be associated with these other larger media outlets, right? So if you are a career expert and you are featured in articles on CNBC Make It, right? And we talk about salary negotiation. We want Google to recognize you as the expert in your industry. So in order to do that, your name has to be associated in these, what I call legacy URLs. So Time Magazine, CNBC, ABC, NBC, right? All of these like legacy URLs that have been there that Google recognizes as experts in the industry and experts online. If your name gets put in there, then Google recognizes you. Oh, okay. Oh, Kat. Oh, interesting. I'm going to make her, we're going to lump her into this category. So when people start searching her keywords, she comes up, right? So that's the importance of publicity. I just kind of like word vomited everything to you, but that's the beauty of it, and helping people get visible, right? If you don't, if nobody knows you exist, nobody can find you. But if we are targeting, websites and media publications that are in your target niche, then Google starts recognizing you as an expert. So when people start searching, hey, I need a business coach. Hey, I need a career coach. Hey, I need this. You come up in the search rankings.
Which makes a ton of sense. And I even though you said a lot of things, no, you said amazing things. And it made me think of too, like when you were talking about making sure that when you're pitching to journalists that it's done in a specific way and it aligns with what it is that they are focused on. It's the same way with podcasting as well, which has become a huge tool in the industry for people to use. And instead of just blindly, submitting all the things all over the place, which, right, you can submit 10,000 things, you're eventually going to get one. You can strategically do it, which takes you or your team a lot less time. It's a lot more impactful, and it moves the needle forward in your business 10 times quicker than if you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and going, well, somebody's going to like it. Somebody eventually is going to get back to me, right?
Yeah.
I love it. And what I think is really interesting too is I don't think, and this is something you and I talked about way beforehand as well, like I've never thought about pitching myself to like my local news channels or anything like that when it comes to what I do. I've been so focused on the digital age because you do need to have that, especially if you want your presence to be spread wider, that I kind of like completely miss the community thing that's right here beside me. So what would you say, if someone is thinking like, I've got this really big idea, I know that I kind of want to take myself to the next level, where the heck do you even begin?
Yeah, I know. Listen, entrepreneurship, we were talking about this too. Like entrepreneurship is a lot, right? Like we as entrepreneurs, we love the pain and we love the work and the hustle and the bustle. And, I look at publicity as another tool in your marketing tool belt, right? So like in marketing, like, you're out on Instagram, you're out on Reels, right? You're doing Facebook ads, you're trying to target the right people, but media is a free way to get into millions of eyeballs at the same time, right? Something that maybe Instagram Reels or Facebook ads can't do for you. Let's say if you got featured, I was just reading a bunch of statistics, a bunch of my data from my client that got featured in Yahoo Finance. And I'm looking and I'm like, holy crap, like Yahoo Finance has like 100 million readers a month,
Oh,
right? So like
wow.
it's insane. So if you get featured in an article on Yahoo Finance, I mean, 120 million people aren't going to read it, but maybe 500,000 people are going to read it, right?
Yeah.
And your name is in there, your hyperlink back to your website, right? A lot of media publications typically do that. They will give you the credit, right? The hyperlink, the backlink really is what it's called. And all of this digital footprint stuff that I'm talking about is all SEO, right? It's search engine optimization, right? We want to make sure that you are optimized on Google for people to find you. So when people are searching for you, you're there. So one of my clients, right? So if we search one of her keywords, she's been featured in 7, 8 different articles and boom, she comes up, right? Because her search ranking is getting higher and getting better because we're connecting her to these top media outlets. And so that's the importance of it. And as a journalist, I started noticing like, oh my God, like, of course I always knew journalism was important and big, but I didn't see it from a business and entrepreneurship lens until I was covering these stories. And I would see, oh my God, and I would get emails from people of stories that I've covered, like, Mercedes, you changed my life, right? I did a story on a woman who had a nonprofit and she pitched me the story and like, I was like, okay, sure. Like, let's do it. She flew, and this was when I was living in New York. I forget where she was living. I think she was in LA even. She flew to New York. She's like, no, I'm coming. Like, I'm not going to do this
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to do this on Skype. Like, this is a big deal. I am flying there. And I'm like, okay, and she came and her video, it was when I was working at Now This News, which is a millennial news company. We did her video and it got like over 5 million views. It was like, it blew up. And because people really resonated with her message, and she sent me an email and she was like, Mercedes, thank you. Like, you have changed my business. You've changed my nonprofit, right? And now I can help more people. And so I started getting emails like this and I started noticing, oh my God, like, this is amazing. And the work that I do as a journalist, how can I pivot that and help entrepreneurs, feel what I'm feeling, right? The excitement of getting featured. Because when you think of a publicist, you think, oh, I'm not ready for PR, right? Or I'm a small business owner. It's just me. I'm not an Elon Musk. I don't have millions of, I'm not a billionaire, right? Or a Jeff Bezos or something. But you are still entitled to your voice and your expertise. And it doesn't matter if you have 1 client, 0 clients, as long as you are an expert in your industry and you have done the work to validate that you are an expert in the industry, right? I'm an expert in journalism and I'm an expert in PR, right? I am I am deserving of a media feature. And so that's what I do with my clients is I'm like, hey, like, let's sit down. Let's talk a lot about potential story ideas. And a lot of the times my clients, and I say, just tell me everything. And I'm just going to write everything down. Just start from the beginning. When were you born? Where did you live? You know? And some of those stories that they don't think are important are the ones that usually are the most important. I'm like, no, that's not the angle. That's the angle. So we're going to go with that. Right. So where people can start is, start to look at a little bit of your marketing plan. Like, what does that look like? Does media make sense for you? Do you have, actionable tips and actionable takeaways that you can provide to a journalist for an article? Are you an expert in your industry? What is your industry, right? Even before you start thinking about PR is like, I've turned potential clients down because I'm like, we got to figure out your offer and your niche and your brand first, right? One thing too is like, if you don't have your name solidified or your business name or your website, right? We want to make sure all of that is ready to go before we start pitching you out to the media. Because if we pitch you out as Jane Doe and then you go around and change your business name to, John Appleseed and that doesn't make any sense and Google won't make the two connections. So we want to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row before. And journalists want to see that too, right? They want to make sure that your website is optimized, that you have a very active, I'm not saying, you need to have 10,000 Instagram followers, but you need to be present online. That is very important. And having an active newsletter is important as well. And just being an expert in your industry, right? And making sure that you really zero in on what it is that you are talking about. Because journalists will look at that and they'll say, oh, no, I don't know if this person is an expert because now they're talking about this other thing. So you really want to make sure that all of those ducks are in a row before you start PR.
I love that. And that's such a good tip too, because you think about it, there's so many people in the entrepreneurial space that, are life coaches or they are business coaches or they're a strategist. And while the name, quotation marks, or the label is the same, it's being able to differentiate from those pieces. And I think, like you're saying, a lot of people kind of miss that mark because we have so many passions of things that we want to do that we don't kind of like separate them out. You can have multiple passions. I do. I'm not good at being in one thing, but if you can box them, then you can meet someone where they're at depending on what it is that they're needing from you, right? So if you do speaking like I do speaking and I run a podcast, so I want to promote my podcast, those are two different buckets. So depending on who I'd be speaking with, I could then pitch this piece for speaking and be like, this is all the things and really hone in on that. Or this is my podcast and like, this is all the things. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, I was going to say new, but I'm going to say even those that are seasoned too, we get a little muddy with how we promote that, because even if we have certain things that we like to do, we try to shove it all together and forget that like you can push one specific thing out front, which is like the main piece, and still on the back end have all these other things that you can do that you can kind of put people into categories once you get them interested, once they relate to your story or once they relate to what it is that you're talking about, and then be able to categorize them on like, oh, hey, I also do this. So this may actually work better for you. How do you feel like that transfers over into, when you are looking at PR and journalism?
I think, well, let me think about it. Can you rephrase that a little bit?
For multi-passionated people who are listening going, well, I have a ton of things that I do. How would you suggest that they're able to pitch those so that it makes sense and they can still continue to bring people into the other pieces of their business they want to grow?
That's really interesting. So it's interesting as long as the umbrella of what you're talking about is the same, right? So, one of my clients right now, we're positioning her as an expert in 10 different talking points, right?
Oh, wow.
And, but it all relates to what she does. And a big thing that you want to kind of, if you are doing your own PR, because you can do your own PR, is it hard? Yes. Is it a lot of work? Yes. This is why, my clients hire me, is because they are like, I don't even know where to start. Right? A lot of people don't know where to start. I know where to start, right? I'm like, okay, I got my connections, I got my people, I got my story ideas in my head. So for people that have, a wide range of things that they talk about, just make sure it kind of falls under the same umbrella. But you want to make sure, one of the things that I've noticed or that I've learned in entrepreneurship is niching down. I feel like, when I first started my business, I'm like, oh, I'm going to target everyone because everyone needs, PR, and I can help the whole world. And I started realizing that when you're talking to everybody, you're not talking to anybody, right? And so you want to make sure to niche down, or at least that's what I like to tell my clients, is make sure you have a little bit of a niche. Don't niche too far down, right? We don't want to just, go for the ages 24 to 48 women, whatever. No, like we want to make sure that you're helping the right people and that there's a wide range, but we don't want to be like, let's help everybody in the world, because then you're not serving anybody. So just make sure that your umbrella, your wide umbrella is a good niche, and all the other talking points that you can talk about are good, right? They're all relatable. Be very active online. And yeah, that would be my advice.
I love that. And I love that you talk about, like, it being your umbrella, because if you think about it, the way that you should be presenting yourself on social media as well, you kind of have your umbrella of what your company is, and then you should have it kind of categorized, or what we would call pillars, right? I love to talk about the pillars of your business, and that way they hold up your tabletop, which is that
100%.
umbrella piece that you're talking about, and being sure that even if you do have multiple passions, like you said, that they do kind of land together. And I would also caution, like, you may love all the things and be able to categorize 10 or 15 different things. We should probably start with like 3 or 4. That's just going to be my suggestion. And then I think that you could build from there, because like you said, then you can relate it back. And then it's almost like a sub-subject or a sub-piece of what you do. And then you can pitch that, talk about it, or promote it in the right environment, depending on which direction you want to take your business.
Exactly. And it's okay to talk about, like, I'm a mother, right? So I talk about my kid all the time on my Instagram, and like that, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about, what I share on my Instagram is like how to get started in PR, when to know to hire a publicist, how to even find journalists, right? And that's something I can even touch on too, is like, how would one, let's say there's an entrepreneur out there that wants to potentially be featured in the media. What is the number one or the first step that they should do?
Yes.
That is reading the news, right? You have to read the news in order to be featured in the news, right? You have to make sure that your dream media outlets that you have in your head, whether it's Business Insider, whether it's CNBC, whether it's Forbes, you want to make sure that you're familiar with what they're covering, right? And so, start to put on your reporter hat, put on your journalist hat. For me, it's a lot easier said than done, because I've studied it and I've worked in it for so long. But the best thing I can advise is, start to read the news, start to read if you're an interior designer, right? Read architecturaldigest.com every single day. Look at some of the stories that are out there, right? A lot of stories in Architectural Digest are like, oh, summer's coming. Like, what is the best color you can paint a bedroom for, right? There's a lot of like very seasonal things, very timely things, very newsy things. Right now, a big conversation is salary transparency, right? That's a big topic right now.
Yeah.
The 4-day work week is a big conversation right now. So if you are an entrepreneur and, you work 4 days a week, and you take off Fridays or you take off Mondays, like, pitch yourself out to a journalist that is covering stories like that, and just introduce yourself and say, hey, my name is Mercedes, find them on LinkedIn, connect with them on Twitter, right? Sometimes Instagram's a little funny, because it's a little more private, I think, but there are some journalists that are very active on Instagram. If they are very active and they're public, say, hey, and introduce yourself. My name is Mercedes, and I'm a publicity expert, and I can talk on these talking points, boom, boom, boom. If you ever have a story in the pipeline that I would be a good fit for, let me know, right? And you want to make sure that you are targeting the right journalist that is covering your niche and your beat, because you don't want to target somebody else that doesn't, because they're going to be like, that's not my thing. Had you done research, you would have known, right? And that happens, and you're like, oops, sorry. But
my bad. I was just
yeah,
trying
my
to
bad.
squeeze myself in.
Exactly. It's hard. And, you have to, that's why hiring, outsourcing, investing in yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have invested so much money in myself, in courses and learnings and my website, and, and all these things. And it's all come back twofold, right? So when you invest in yourself, people see that, and you have to invest for yourself in order for people to invest in you. So, you know, if you are ready for media and that type of marketing, you know, let's talk, let's see if it's a right fit. But yeah, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that do their own publicity and land features as well.
Which I love. And I feel like there are there are so many things out there. Like if you're like, okay, like me, for example, we'll use me as an example. I don't read the news. I stay away from the news. And I know there's a lot of people that I chat with that are like, I don't want to be involved in it. But like you're saying, you kind of need to know, you kind of need to understand. How would you even find publications that you may be interested in being in if you could kind of stayed away from all of that? I mean, obviously there are the big ones, right? Like Forbes and things like that. But let's just say, okay, well, I just want to like test the waters. I want to like get on some that I know are like known,
Yeah.
what I don't know what those may be. How would you
Yeah.
suggest getting someone kind of involved in that? Just Googling it? Or is there a strategy to that? Like what?
Yeah. You know what I use a lot? This is my like secret right now. I use Chat GPT all the time.
Oh,
All the time. I will write like, hey, I am a publicity expert and I can touch on A, B, C, and D. What media outlets, you know, do you suggest that I pitch? And it will spit out, you know, 10. And then you're like, give me 10 more. And it'll spit out 10 more. And, you know, give me 10 more, give me 50, right? And it'll spit out a bunch of them. Some of the ones like, because some of the clients that I work with are more kind of brick and mortar businesses, right? So they need
mm-hmm.
to target local. And I don't live, you know, I live in LA. I don't live in Denver, Colorado, or I don't live in Houston, Texas. So I don't know the local news there. But what I do,
Yeah.
I go to Chat GPT and I say, hey, Chat GPT, hey, AI, you know, tell me the local media stations around Houston, Texas, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it will be like KABC, KNYC, you know, it'll spit out a million different call letters and things. And from there, I'll just kind of do some researching and I'll find the right journalists. And you know, I mean, for publicists, it's a lot of like making lists and targeting the right people and doing a lot of research. And as a publicist, you have access to internal like different types of data and
Mm-hmm.
email lists and things like that. So but for somebody that's just starting off, you know, I would do that. I would start reading your local news. I would start watching your local morning show and say, oh, you know what? That kind of falls in my niche. Like, I wonder if they would be interested in a story similar. You don't want to pitch the same story, but you want to pitch something similar, right? Or you can pitch
Yeah.
something similar, and make sure that it has a little bit of a timely angle. I think timely stories do fairly well, right? Like we talked about the 4-day work week, salary negotiation. You know, March was very recent, right? That was Women's History Month, right? So there's a big conversation on the gender wage gap, right? So pitch timely things, right? Summer's coming up. Maybe you own a swimwear line, right? And how do we get you into, you know, some of these lists where we can feature your swimsuits, right? For summer, right? And so start to think of some of those timely things and that will really help you in your strategy.
Ooh, I love that so much because I was like, oh yeah, we just had that. And then we have we had domestic violence month and we had
Yeah, Latina Equal Pay Day, I think is coming up, or you know, so there's a lot of things that Earth Day, right, is a big one. You know, things like that, right? You know, you kind of start thinking of what are some of these little holidays or some newsy things, or if something happens in the news, pitch yourself out, right? Find a journalist and say, hey, if you're ever covering this story, I'm here. I can talk anytime. I'm available. Give me a call.
I love that. And that's so smart too, because I mean, if you think about it, or at least I do occasionally, I Google like what are some of the holidays that are coming up because, well, one, there are way too many. But some of the bigger nationally known ones that are set for the months. And that makes so much sense. See, this is why I love her, you guys, because I just never thought about these things. And I'm in business, like, duh. But that's why you're the expert, not me. But I love that. And I love that, you know, kind of going back to the beginning as well, because I feel like this needs to be kind of drilled in is if you are looking to do this, if you are looking to pitch yourself or have someone that's going to help you, making sure there are certain things in order,
Yeah.
whether that's you do it yourself or you end up hiring someone, but like you need to have your bio really nailed down. You need to know that, you know, your company is what it's going to be, and it's not going to be a potential move. How long have you been in business? Because I know that when I was almost 2 years in, I did a complete rebrand because I was like, oh, this
Yeah.
doesn't line with me anymore. Right. And that happens. But like you
Mhm.
said, if you do it and then you turn around and you do something else right afterward because you were unsure to begin with,
Mhm.
nobody's going to be able to find you anyway. So I really want to kind of bring that back up as well. The importance of having some of those things laid out. One, you need to have it in your business, but two, especially if you are looking to really pitch yourself out there. I know that I've talked on this podcast with about newer entrepreneurs and like you don't have to have a website completely built. You
Right.
still don't. I'm not saying you do, but if you're
Mhm.
going in this direction, right, that's completely different. There are certain things that you need to make sure that are in place. And like you said, it does establish you as the expert in that area so that people, one, can find you easier, and two, are more apt to ask questions or get involved with you versus just kind of like you were saying, they completely kind of miss the pitch and you're like, yeah, and on to the next one.
Mhm. And that's the thing too, is like, you're going to send out, if you do your own PR, you're going to send out 1,000 pitches and you may get one email that says, huh, maybe. It's interesting, but I don't, like that happens all the time. So don't get discouraged. Like I was just meeting with a potential client yesterday and they were like, I emailed my local, newspaper and I haven't heard back. And I'm like, that's so normal. Like that is so normal. I get dozens. And I think it's karma for me being a journalist and ignoring publicists like over the course of my career, because journalists get hundreds of I'm telling you that's really true. Like I would get hundreds of emails in my inbox where I'm like, I can't even respond to everybody,
Yeah.
you know? And so I do, you as journalists, like you do ignore publicists and like, that sucks. And so now it's my karma and I am wholeheartely accepting it. And I'm like, okay, this person's going to ignore me, but that's okay because I'm going to keep following them and following up.
Mm-hmm.
And one day they might be like, okay, yeah, you know what? I do like this. So don't get discouraged. And
Yeah.
yeah, just make sure, like you said, you don't have to have a crazy website, like up and running and all these master classes and things. As long as you have something that looks good, and it shows that you're active,
Mm-hmm.
that's all you need.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mhm.
you were talking about how journalists do get flooded with hundreds and hundreds of stuff. What would you say, or do you have any tips in regards to like what kind of might make you stand out when somebody is trying to get through those emails or go through those lists and things like that? Are
Oh,
there things that, kind of pique your interest or you pay
yes.
attention to?
Yes. Finding some sort of like personalization when you're sending the email, like, hey, Kat, oh my gosh, like I took a look at your LinkedIn and it looks like you and I both, really like football, or whatever, right? Or, oh, you used to live in New York. How cool. I used to live there. Or, oh, you're in Brooklyn. Oh, cool. So was I at one point. So, there's many ways to personalize it. And sorry, my son just walked in.
That's okay. I'm all about interruptions. It happens. Ta-da!
Hi, baby. I know. I just walked in. So anyway, hopefully we can erase that. So there's a lot of ways to send an email, and you want to personalize it, and you want to make sure that you are finding a little bit of that connection with someone, because we're all human at the end of the day, and we all want human connection. And that's the best way to get someone to respond to your email, or even sending them a LinkedIn message and saying, hey, my name is so and so and I can talk on XYZ. And always, not pestering too much, but you always want to make sure to kind of stay top of mind, because you want to make
Mhm.
sure that if the story does come up, let's say 3 months down the line, like you're the first one that they think of, right? So that's really important.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that one. And I love that, like you said, personalizing it, because I think that in the world of, well, in the world of business and personal, right? We're all looking for community. We're all looking to be liked, or we're looking for people that we can connect to. It's one of the most genuine and easiest,
Mhm.
in my personal opinion, ways to connect with people, because you don't have to force it. You don't have to pitch it. You don't have to try to sell it. It just is what it is. And you are who you are. And I think that a lot of people need to understand that, even those that have physical products, you're still selling you. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, no, you may have an amazing product, but I know that I have bought from people because I just love the way that they do things, or I love the things that they video. And then I'm like, well, okay, now I got to buy it just because I like
right.
them. Right. So I
Yeah.
love that you brought that in. And I think that more people need to take the time to personalize it as well to make that connection. Because I also think that one, like we kind of talked about in the beginning, you don't have to send out as many because now you're finding those that kind of align with who you are anyway, and it's more of a genuine connection. And then it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm pitching this person again. Oh
Right.
my gosh, I got to follow up with this guy.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm
Exactly.
I'm sending email number 553. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
that's wonderful. So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Um, for those that, have thought about PR in general and just how they could do it differently. I know in the beginning you said that, PR is not for everyone. Who would you say that PR is more for,
Mhm.
or what qualities, aspirations, background, what are they needing if this is something that they're like, oh,
Yep.
kind of sounds like a good
Yep.
idea? How do you know that this is the direction you want to go?
Yep. I say if you are ready to take that next step in your business, if let's say you've hit a little bit of a plateau and you're like, what do I do now? I've exhausted all of my resources. I've done, Facebook ads, and I've bought every course on on the market, and I've done all these things. Like, what is the one thing that I can try, that will get me visibility? That's when you're ready, right? When you're like, I've done everything. What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
So, you leave it in the hands of the publicist. And here's the thing too, is publicity takes a few weeks to get off the ground. Like, it's not like I'm going to send a pitch out today and like, oh yeah, let's do it. No, like it's me over and over saying, hey, remember me? Hey, right. And so that's why you want a publicist on your side that stands behind your values, stands behind your brand, and is really going to do the work to get you the notoriety and the visibility that you need. It's not easy, and not all entrepreneurs have the time, but I think if you are ready to take your business to that next level, like, I think you are ready for PR. So let's
Mm-hmm.
talk.
I love it. And just so you guys know as well, we're not saying that this is an avenue, this is a for sure thing that you need to do. We also understand that some people run their businesses in a smaller regard and they're happy with that. By all means, like, please run your business
Yeah.
the way that you want. And for those that really want to make an impact, for those that really have big, audacious goals that are looking to
Yeah.
do something different, or if, like you said, you're kind of plateaued out, or you're like, okay, I've kind of done all the things with all the people around me. How do I get past them? How could I reach more? Then I
Mhm.
definitely think that it's an avenue that you can explore. But understanding in all these podcast episodes, take what aligns with you and leave the rest, because not everything is meant to work for every single person.
Yeah.
However, if you do decide to do PR, I'm just saying Mercedes is kind of freaking fantastic. So,
Thank you.
but
Thank you.
as we come to a close, one thing that I always ask all of my guests is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
Ooh, yeah. Um, that is a good one.
Okay.
I think, with entrepreneurship, it is hard, right? And I think, like, the quote that I always have in my head is, done is better than perfect,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You figure it out as you go. I guess that's two quotes. Here's a third. Fake it till you make it. Right? All the things, right? And
Yeah.
and always that imposter syndrome comes in. Doesn't matter how successful you are, how, that imposter syndrome of like, you're a fake and you're a fraud, and I don't know why people pay you to do this. And, so you have those ups and downs, and entrepreneurship is a big ebb and flow, right? And you give and take, and ups and
Hmm.
downs and roller coaster rides. And I think just keep going, right? Keep going. It doesn't matter, even if you do small little steps along the way, that's going to benefit you in the future. And, just don't give up. If this is something that you are really passionate about and you really want to help clients and entrepreneurs do XYZ, don't give up, and don't let that little voice in your head kind of steer you the wrong way. And when you get, this is something that I learned from a coach one time, is when you get emails of people that are like, oh my God, working with you has been the best decision of my life. You are amazing. That screenshot that, put it on a folder on your desktop, and look back at it on days where you're like, not feeling it or think you're a failure or want to quit, right? Remind yourself of like why you're doing what you're doing, and looking at some of those little screenshots, that has really helped me too in my like imposter syndrome, right?
I
So
love that.
all of that is important. I learned that from a coach and I'm like, that is so good.
That makes
I'm
so
gonna
much
take that.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm gonna have sticky notes all over the place.
Exactly. Just like print them out and like put them on your walls. Like, oh, I remember.
Just have one whole like plaque full of them.
Exactly.
Well, Mercedes, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast and sharing all of this amazing information, for those that are just beginning in it or those that are ready to really take it to the next level. I love that you shared both pieces of that for people. So as we come to a close, please tell everybody, how can they connect with you? How can they be around you? How can they be in your world?
Yes. So follow me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram, Mercedes and Media, MEDIA. You can find me on there, and my website, mercedesbarba.com. Just shoot me a message or, shoot me a DM on Instagram and I will get back to you. Yeah. And let's connect and tell me that you heard me on this podcast and let's talk. And I love to just kind of network with people. So I am on board.
I love it. I love it so much. And of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes. We'll make it super simple so that you guys can connect with Mercedes. She is a fantastic human being. So, and I hope that you got some amazing tips, whether, again, like she said, you're brand new in it, you decide you want to try it yourself and just dip your toe in, or you're ready to take it to the next level. There are so many things I didn't know that you could do with PR and different ways that you can interact in your business. So especially for you that, don't want to just make social media the way. There are tons of other avenues, and Mercedes has really brought that to the forefront today. So again, I hope you guys had an amazing time. Mercedes, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Thank you, Kat. Thanks for everyone listening. I appreciate you all.
You are so welcome. And to everybody else out there, I hope you got some amazing takeaways. And don't forget, until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference it makes in your life. Until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.